about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
So welcome back to the channel. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about the JonBenét Ramsey case, and in particular about that case is the ransom note and the allegation that JonBenét's brother Burke was responsible for the homicide. Now, if you remember my video that I did on the JonBenét Ramsey case, it was very encompassing. And I don't want to get into all that again. I will link that video at the end here. That video has over, I don't know, over 1 million views. And the reason being is because what I wanted to do in that particular case was give the look from the people that believe that the family was responsible. And then the look from the people that believe, you know, that Lou Smith's theory that an outsider was responsible. And those are basically the two camps. What I wanted to do was look at the evidence and then give my opinion as to what I believe. Now, theories are much like assholes, right? Everybody has one. But it's the way that you back up your theory that is important. And I'm a big believer in this, and I talk about it a lot on my videos. And the reason I do it is because it's important. You can't just throw out allegations and have them based in no merit. Now, what constitutes merit? Constitutes merit is training and experience and tangible, direct, or indirect evidence. Now, an example for shoddy theory would be the Idaho murder case, where people wanted to point the finger at dad of one of the victims. I would go a step further and say, and also point the finger at the mother of one of the victims because of her drug history. That is what you call shoddy theory. Because shoddy theory, I like that. That might be a new one for me instead of I digress. Shoddy theory. It's not based in merit. You can make the connection of drug use. Let's look at that Idaho case for a half a second here. Let's say the victim, let's say the boy. Was it Ethan? Let's say his brother's best friend, if he has a brother, let's just pretend. His brother's best friend in high school got arrested once for possession of marijuana. There's a connection, right? So some idiot out there in voodoo internet land will say, I found this, so that is the connection. The person who actually murdered these 4 individuals was probably the drug dealer of Ethan's brother's friend. See how that all connects? And in fact, Ethan was the target. And that theory, in some people's minds, has merit, right? It's like, well, it could fit because of this. Shoddy theory. Okay? It has no merit. If you think about it in a conspiratorial, and I hate to say conspiracy because that isn't really what a conspiracy consists of. that's just making connections where connections don't lie. I mean, yes, they're there, but it has nothing to do with the murder. There's no direct or indirect evidence, nor training and experience on the person that started this theory's part. You know what I'm saying? Like the Eddie Edwards case, if you go back and watch my videos on that, when you have this, I even hate to say it, FBI task force officer, because that's what I was. So I have a colleague of mine saying, hey, this Eddie Edwards was the Zodiac killer, the Atlanta child killers, JonBenét Ramsey, O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, all these people, he killed them all. Why? And I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Why? Tell me. If you can show me evidence, I'll entertain it. And it was connections. Well, he was in Atlanta when the JonBenét Ramsey murder happened. Oh, he matches the description of the Zodiac killer. He had a hatred for black people, and that's why the Atlanta child murders, and it all fits. No, idiot. None of it fits. Okay? That's just trying to make connections, and you see how it did, but it's a connection of no relevance. And what I really hate when people do this is when they exploit it. Meaning, it's so sensational, I can get a television show because of it, or I can write a book and people will buy it, or nowadays I will make a YouTube video and get millions of views off of this asinine connection or shoddy theory. See how I threw that in? And people fall for it. Okay? There's got to be people like me out there that debunk this crazy stuff. I watch a guy, his name's Don Shipman. He exposes all these people that lie and say they are Navy SEALs. You know, they go around bragging, they're Navy SEALs, and he calls them up, looks on the databases, and people say to him, why are you embarrassing them like this? It's a harmless crime. They're not hurting anybody. They're just telling a lie. Shut up. Okay? You can't lie about who you are. You can, but there's repercussions because of it. And if Don Shipman or anybody else wants to call out these frauds, just like, what's his name, Randy, the amazing Randy, you know, who called out all these charlatans who think they're psychics. Here's $1 million. If you can come on my show and in front of the audience, show me your mystical powers. Never had to pay it out one time. You know why? Because it doesn't exist. But there's people that believe in it. And no matter what you say, you know, there was a guy on there that could magically turn the pages of a book or a telephone book without even touching it. And it looked real, right? He's just standing there looking at it, and the page turns. You're like, oh my God. But the amazing Randy says, let's try this. Let's put a fish aquarium over that book. Let's put some, you know, paper, shredded paper or peanuts, packing peanuts, talcum powder around the edges. And now let's see if you can do it. And all of a sudden, it's the lights. The lights are causing me not to be able to do it. It's messing with my radar signals from my brain to turn it. No, you know what it was? And he admitted to it eventually. While he was in jail, remember when people are in jail, they have time to do a lot of things. That's why Kim Hubbard could point out all of these inconsistencies in his murder case, but it didn't matter. I digress. He learned to have this breathing technique where it doesn't even look like he's blowing a puff of air, and it would hit the page at the right angle and turn it. And he admitted. And once the amazing Randy put the aquarium over there, he couldn't do it anymore. See how it's debunked? There's people like that, Don Shipman, the Amazing Randy, and I'm not going to put kenmains in that elite territory, but for true crime purposes, there needs to be people like me that say, hey, your theory is bullshit, and this is why. Just because a person's in that hometown during that time doesn't necessarily make him the killer, and you can't base your theories off of that. So, Ted Bundy, Ann Burr, how old was she? 8-year-old girl that went missing. And Ted Bundy had a connection there. He lived within blocks of that, and they want to pin that murder on him. Just because he lives there, you can't say he did it. He's responsible. You got to have direct. If you don't have direct evidence, that's okay for a theory. You can have indirect or circumstantial, but you can't just have a connection. Meaning, if Ted Bundy was seen walking with that child earlier in the day, a week even previous, I would say there's some good circumstantial evidence right there. But there's no evidence whatsoever to say that Ted Bundy even knew the girl. Now they want to make a connection, well, Ted's uncle taught her piano and all this stuff, but it's all innuendo. It's all rumors throughout the years. Come on. You guys are smart. You can figure this stuff out. If you have a guy at your local bar with a big old beer belly and beard, and he's wearing his medals on his chest and a trident and says he's a Navy SEAL, and he's bragging about, and all of his claims I can't talk about it because it's classified, call him out on his bullshit, because 90% of the time he's lying. People aren't bragging. People aren't wearing their trident out in their medals. Come on now. It goes along with having integrity. Anyway, I digressed all the way from the ransom note in the JonBenét Ramsey case to a beer swigging, beer belly, wannabe Navy SEAL in your local bar. Only I can do that, right? Anyway, back to JonBenét. There's this assertion that when I did that video, and I said, I never claimed I know who the killer is, because I don't. All I said as my conclusion was, I looked at the intruder theory, I looked at inside the house, I looked at the evidence, and what it told me, in my training, in my experience, is that somebody from inside that house, meaning a family member or somebody who was staying there, committed the murder. That's what the evidence showed me. Now, could it have been Burke? Sure. Was he staying in the house? Okay. Could have been Patsy Ramsey. Was she staying in the house? Yes. John? Yes. So to me, it comes down to those three. Either one without the other knowing, a combination of two, a combination of three, whatever it was. But the crux of that is the ransom note. Now, just because I said Burke Ramsey could possibly have been the murderer of his sister, which certainly could be true, on purpose or as an accident, it doesn't mean, and some people have implied that I meant it to mean that Burke Ramsey wrote the ransom note. Before I did the smartest thing in the world, which was turn off my comments, there was a lot of comments, as you can imagine, on a 1 million viewed video that, and they would say, some of them, well, you don't know what you're talking about, kenmains, because Burke Ramsey couldn't have written that note. Oh, I never said he wrote the note. I never said he wrote the note. Okay? He certainly could have murdered his sister, accident or on purpose, and the note be constructed by Patsy Ramsey. That is certainly possible. I never said that Burke could have written that note. And in fact, it's my belief there's no way he wrote that note. No way. Zero. But somebody in that house did. You know why? Because nobody's going to do a kidnapping and then sit down in the victim's own home and write a note on their notepad using their pen. And then put the pen back in the holder. Don't see it, folks. Is it possible? Sure. Is it probable? No way. Now, you have John Ramsey on this media kick lately about, wanting to find the killer and the DNA. What do I think about that? I don't. People say, well, if he was guilty, if he knew, then why would he be doing this? Well, do you guys ever known a celebrity? First of all, that's what he is now, okay? And before he was a celebrity, he was rich. Rich people like to be in the spotlight. Rich people do not like to be proved wrong. If he, and you sometimes, and I'll say sometimes, you become rich because you're not dumb, okay? And you're a hard worker. You know what it takes. He's smart enough to know that, hey, I can push for this stuff because more than likely, they're not going to find anything. And if they do, and for some reason, if it comes back to the family member, well, so what? It's transfer DNA. It's touch DNA. It should be there. Now, if he was pushing, let's say there was semen found on JonBenét. If he was pushing for that, I would look at things a whole different way. But that's not what he's pushing for. So, I don't really put any stock into what John Ramsey is saying or doing. I just know what the evidence says to me. That is more probable than not that someone from inside that house murdered JonBenét. That's what it says. Not saying 100%, because there is no smoking gun, but the totality of all the evidence points me to that. Could have an intruder came in? Sure, you can make that assertion, and I think Lou Smiths did a pretty good job of that. But it doesn't change the facts of statistics of the ransom note being written inside the house, being placed on a staircase that isn't normally used that much. I mean, I'm not going to go into it all here. If you want, wait to the end of this video and then click on that JonBenét Ramsey video that I did. I just want to point out that I never said that Burke Ramsey wrote that note. And in fact, I don't believe that he did. But somebody from inside that house did. And if it wasn't him, there's only two other people inside that house. One of the greatest things that I say that I've learned about my 20 years of being a detective and a police officer is you never know what goes on behind closed doors. I mean, you could stand in line at a grocery store behind somebody and not know that they're a sexual predator. I mean, or anything. You know how many search warrants I've conducted where I've kicked down a door with my foot, but also with a ram, gone in and did a search warrant and pulled things out of people's dressers or under their mattresses that you would never in a million years think about them. I mean, you see them, talk to them, even in an interview setting, and you would never think of the stuff that you would find. It re-emphasizes you never know what goes on behind closed doors. So, with that said, I don't know what this video was supposed to be completely about the ransom note, but then when I started talking, it kind of went with Idaho and making a connection. Not me making a connection, but showing you a connection between Idaho and JonBenét Ramsey. But it also talked about Eddie Edwards and the idiotic claim that he was responsible for all the famous murders in the world. It's ironic. I wrote a short story screenplay book about that 10, 15 years ago called Because I Could. I think it's on Amazon. You can look it up. Certainly on my website. But I remember watching that Eddie Edwards thing thinking, this guy's stealing my... But mine was fiction. He's making it nonfiction. He's saying it was a true story. I wrote it as a nonfiction account of somebody that murdered people in every decade, and it was a famous case. Oh well. Story of my life. People stealing my thunder. I'm used to it, I guess. But listen, in all seriousness, when you look at a true crime case, an unsolved homicide, you have to, you don't have to, but you try to look at case linkage. Okay, is there another case that could be linked to this? Now, the reason you do that, whether it's that other case is solved or not, is because it will give you clues to your unsolved case. That's the reason you do it. What can I learn? The more cases that you have that are linked to an individual, that you don't know who that individual is, you will learn something from each case, and it's going to build your profile up of who your suspect is. That's why case linkage is important. But you can't make those cases, you can't just be a connection because he was in that town during that time. That's not case linkage. This is case linkage. Let's say the Idaho murders. You have that. Okay. 30 miles away, there was a case where two individuals were murdered with a knife. And it was determined it was a K-bar knife. Ooh. Well, we have a sheath right here from a K-bar. A K-bar is used. Okay. Give me one other thing, maybe. Give me something. A witness saw a man in his 20s or 30s in a white car drive away. Boom. We got it. That's linkage. I'll take that. Okay. What can I learn from this scene up here to help me with this unsolved scene down here? He used a rope to tie the victims up on this case. Well, down here at the Idaho case, he didn't do that. But I still have that K-bar connection. I still have the white car connection. I still have the physical resemblance connection. Okay, well, that white piece of rope, I can take now as, okay, if I do a search, let's say I find a suspect. I find Brian Kohberger. He's a suspect. I do a search warrant on his house, and I find white rope. I can connect that to this unsolved murderer up here, right? So now you have case linkage, not just case linkage. Now you can possibly close out two of those cases because you found that linkage. But it's through direct and indirect evidence that you can link that. Not a theory, not a connection. Oh, Kohberger's grandparents lived 30 miles away. That's not enough. That's not enough to connect those two. You see what I'm saying? So you have to dig deeper, but as I always say, stay in the town. meaning metaphorically speaking, you're staying in that area. You're not going out to crazy land. Okay, you're not going outside the town walls and start pulling shit into your town that has no meaning and no purpose. Stay within your town. Stay within your box. But dig deep in that box to uncover linkage. That's how you do it. Okay, well, that's all for today. JonBenét Ramsey, Eddie Edwards, Idaho, kind of all grouped into one here. But it's a good talk, and it's important to learn. Okay, learn from it if you can. The more I do these videos, the more I'm trying to help people learn. Because once we stop learning, we start dying. And I feel that. Okay? If you really are vested in true crime and you want to help, don't go to crazy land. Okay? Listen, learn of what you can do, what you should be doing, how to make case linkage, how to use direct, indirect evidence along with circumstantial evidence to build the totality of all the evidence in order to point to the person who is most likely responsible for a crime. That's how you do it. And I'll leave you with that. Mains is out.